Hello and welcome to the last word on Spurs. Oh, guys, I am getting so bored of saying the word therapy. I genuinely am. Look, if you are here for the first time, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're, of course, on Instagram, we're on X, we're on Facebook too. Before I come into this show, I just want to wish everybody that is celebrating a very happy Greek Easter. It is that time of the year. I'm sure for Ange Postecoglou, he's not feeling very happy at the moment. Honestly, don't rub your eyes. Yes, we are here again. Groundhog Day, I called it, bringing the guys into the green room. And look, thanks to these soldiers, we're going to be giving you, hopefully, a bit of therapy, a bit of understanding as to where things are with Spurs at the moment. And look, I'm joined by many call him the voice of reason. Jason McGovern is back for the last time before he flies off to Thailand. I bet he can't wait to go. Joining Jason on this show, we're joined by actor TJ Ramini and the brilliant Patrick Tyrant. Look, I'll be honest with you, regards to this show, guys, I think it's going to be tricky because we want to try and make the show, if we're going to be honest with you, as watchable and as listenable as possible. But I'd be stupid to not get away from the fact that there's definitely two schools of thought at the moment. There's maybe number one, that we've been here a number of times with a manager where ultimately they've called for a rebuild and we have not given a manager that so-called rebuild that they've asked for. And we've simply not stayed to the same script and we've disposed of that manager. There's also that other element of looking at things at the moment where you do maybe genuinely feel the manager is tactically naive. He is potentially out of his depth. And quite honestly, that's the reason why we have lost potentially. It looks like on the field there, 8 or 9 players that simply aren't listening to the manager, aren't taking instructions. So look, we're going to try and make the show as listenable and watchable as possible. And again, I can't thank you enough as always for listening and tuning into the show. Jace, I'm going to open up with you because you've been here with me from the start of Last Word on Spurs over the last 6-7 years. You've seen this play out many, many times. You've seen how that movie script comes to an end. So I want to know your thoughts because we were discussing really off air during the week that I think you had some concerns that I think in one of the press conferences, he came out saying he could absolutely see Spurs were definitively on track. He then seems to have backtracked on that within 48 hours. But this game itself has been another defeat. A painful run Spurs are on. They've now lost 4 consecutive league matches for the first time since suffering 6 in a row in 2004. That's almost 20 years ago. And the Spurs side, Jace, that played with such bravery, intent, character earlier in the season is just seemingly nowhere to be seen at the moment. So I'm really interested to get your thoughts of where you are under Spurs and Ange Postecoglou at the moment.
Well, I think you're definitely seeing a total lack of belief in the players in what they're told to do. I think it's very hard to talk about him tactically at the moment when the players clearly aren't following the tactics set. So you can make the mistake of looking at us thinking, oh, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? They're not doing what they're told to do. So I don't know how you judge his tactic at the moment if the players aren't following them out. So I would say that. I think today, there was so much crap spoken in the week about his refusal to deal with set pieces. I think today you've seen the context of what he was saying about set pieces, that set pieces are the least of our problems. So today, we've actually looked okay from set pieces. I don't think Liverpool have had an effort at goal from a set piece. But we're so wide open and we're so lifeless for an hour, we're 4-0 down. But hey-ho, we haven't conceded a set piece, so everything's right and rosy. And I think that's what he was getting at. There's more problems than just the set pieces. And that they're the bigger problems because we're not playing the football we want to be playing and we're not defending as we should be defending, and hence we're getting ripped open. So that's the big problem, not just concentrating on set pieces. But that's not to say he doesn't worry about set pieces. So I think there's just people didn't understand the context of his argument. I have no stomach to go through yet another sacking, the 4th one in 4 years. At some stage, you have got to stick with what you're told. So, those people saying, Ange's tactics are wrong, they're so naive. We've just had Mourinho and Conte, and I despise Mourinho. But the one thing I will say about Mourinho is you cannot fault him for his tactics. He is the master tactician, and hey, what? We didn't want it. We wanted him gone. We were bored with master tactics. So if we're bored with master tactics, why are we so bothered about Ange not having master tactics? It's like, what do we actually want We actually want a team that's going to win every week and win every competition and win loads of things, but we're not prepared to go through all the stages you need to go to get there. And as soon as we hit a bump in the road, sack him. So who do we bring in? Thomas Frank, Gary O'Neill, Eddie Howe, and then next year when we lose to Chelsea and we go to the Emirates and get beat and we go to Everton, sack them, get rid of them. It's just constant rinse and repeat. And I haven't got the stomach to go through it again. But clearly players are not doing what they're told to do. And today was the bizarre thing is today, actually look at it, we could have ended up getting a result because the last half hour, we had enough chances beyond the 2 goals to actually score another 2. But the fact is we're 4-0 down after an hour. And the fact is after last week, we're 3-0 down at home after 38 minutes. And I've spoke to you several times this week, Rick. I've kind of given up on the season. I've lost interest in the season. Chelsea game to me is, I've always called Chelsea, haven't I, blue Fulham. It means nothing to me, the Chelsea game. I don't get into the hype of it being Chelsea. I can't get out of my head looking at that scoreboard last week, seeing 0-3 at home, thinking Anthony Gardner was never 3-0 down to Thierry Henry at White Hart Lane. Yep. So I kind of checked out my season on 38 minutes last week when they were 3-0 up, having done fuck all in the game to be 3-0 up. I just like, what's the point of this? So, I've no desire to see Ange. Do I think Ange is going to win us the league? No. Do I think he's going to win us lots of cups? No. But then I don't see who is, because Mourinho couldn't and Conte couldn't. So at some stage, what do we actually want? Because we just give up on everything so quickly, and I'm just fed up with the whole process.
Can I ask you one more thing, Jace, before I move on to Pat? Can you, Jace, quite honestly, and I get everything you're saying there, in relation to a potential rebuild that he's asking for, can you do a rebuild when you seem to have lost 9, 10 players of a dressing room? I'm not asking that in a critical way. I'm just asking you in a logical manner. Can you do that and look at the fact of trying to replace 9 or 10 players that have looked like they've given up? Because quite honestly, I think we could all say at 4-0, although we've had that mini comeback again. We've seen it against Arsenal as well. Can you replace that amount of players just on that level of questioning? Forget who the manager's in charge, forget who the chairman is, just on that question itself.
Not in one summer or 2 summers. No, it takes time. But we don't give anyone, we don't want anyone to get this. I mean, like I say, I despised Mourinho, but those that liked him, we didn't even want to give him the time. We were bored silly, so chuck him out after 2 years. And then under Conte, he throws the wobbler at Southampton. We're not prepared to go through it for more than 12 months before we quit on that one. So, no manager is ever going to get the players he wants unless we've won the league in 12 months, because we just give up on it. We just, this is no good enough. We're losing too many games, so give up. And that's all we've done now for years.
Look, I want to come over to you, Pat, if I can. And I think what many make the point is in relation to a specific rebuild is that whenever that we're asked to go out of our comfort zone for prolonged periods, the players generally seem to down tools and, Levy for his own mismanagement, create a culture of comfort where essentially I said this off air to you guys, bringing you into the show, that fans blaming the coaches benefits them as it lets them off the hook, and ultimately they get another manager to work with. So it feels for some that we must stick with Ange until a clear out occurs. But coming into the game, Pat, Liverpool coming to this game with 1 win in 5. And I'll be honest with you, up until an hour again in this game, we were bad at every single aspect of that game. Couldn't defend. Our midfield was really, really poor. We couldn't win the first ball or the second ball for that matter. Our attack couldn't really beat a man. It was dreadful from really top to bottom. So, Pat, where are you? Because you've been quite vocal over the last few weeks about your concern over Spurs tactically naive from situations. Anything changing, Pat, for you on the basis of that again today?
First and foremost, I want to say hello to everyone. It's bank holiday weekend. I know, obviously, the result didn't go our way. But I hope you can, apart from football, enjoy the time with your family and friends. And, that life is bigger than football. And football is the most important and the least important thing. So I want to put that into context because, don't get me wrong, like Jason, after the Arsenal game, I essentially checked out as well. I do see Chelsea as a big rival, so I wanted us to win that game. But I knew that the stakes were really high and against us. Our record here is even worse. So I didn't expect to see anything other than I wanted to see fight, desire, commitment. First 15 minutes, we kind of saw that. We looked okay. We looked quite sharp. We were probably the better team. First to the ball, was zipping the ball around. And then as soon as they scored, everything just went flat. Obviously, they were 4-0 up after 60 minutes. And it could have been, I was fearing a cricket score at one point. Thankfully, they probably took their foot off the pedal. And we came into it when Ange made the subs. And it kind of looked a bit more respectable. 4-2 isn't the greatest scoreline, but it's definitely better than a 4-0 or a 5-1 or whatever it could have been. Going back to your most important question, Vicky, about where I sit and how I feel, I do feel, in my opinion, that I don't feel Ange is good enough to manage Spurs and get us to where we want to go to. I said this in the summer. It was my concerns when he was appointed. The 4 managers I thought were better and more achievable and we could have got and would have probably been a better fit for us was Pochettino. Regardless of what you think, he's tactically better than Ange Postecoglou, and he's shown that in the 2 games that he's played us and beat us convincingly in both games. Albeit in the first game there was a really strange, 2 men sent off in injuries, but he easily got the better of us on Thursday with a very weakened squad. If you look at the bench that they had and the fact that they still beat us 2-0, Pochettino, in my opinion, is still the better manager. Nagelsmann, obviously, you know why I wanted him. Marcelo Gallardo and Arne Slot, who looks like Liverpool are going to give a shot to. Ange is now here. Don't get me wrong. I'm not screaming Ange out. I'm going to back him. I'm going to give him the time. At the end of the day, I don't feel like Jason is saying. I do agree with Jason on most of his points. I don't see the point of us keep chopping and changing. At some point, we do have to stick with what we've got and we have to see what we can do and make it work. But to make it work, that means he has to be backed. Jason, you were asking about what do we do or what's the point? Unless Levy actually backs Ange Postecoglou, I mean, he's got him in now. We have to go big. Whatever Ange needs and whatever Ange says, this is what I need to really compete, he has to be backed. If he's not backed properly, then we're just going to go on this merry-go-round. Couple of good games, we feel good. We'll have a rocky patch, we feel bad. Couple of good games, we feel good. And it's just going to go around in circles. At the moment, 4 losses on the spin is really hard to take. They were saying on the TV, and I was speaking to Ricky earlier in the week, that this is the first time in 20 years this has happened. So obviously that is hard to stomach, but I do understand that this is part of the rebuild. If we want a rebuild, we will have to go through these stages. It's hard, it's tough, but if we don't do it, we'll never get to the other side. And if you look at Arsenal, I hate to do it, but it's a perfect example. The first 2 seasons under Arteta, they were awful. There was a patch and there was a period, you've probably seen it on Twitter, where they lost so many games in a row.
TJ, they were the hand signal.
Yeah,
right?
that's it. And then I think they beat Man United 1-0 and then they lost loads more. But they stuck with him and they gave him what he wanted and what he needed, and he had to get players away, and it was hard and tough. And now look where they are. They're a legitimately brilliant team. And, we've got to just, footballing aside, we can talk about the rivalries, but if you look at them from a footballing standpoint, they are a very, very good team. And if we want to get there, we've got to go through that, unfortunately. And Ange is talking a good talk, and I do like him, don't get me wrong. And like I said, he's here now. I'm going to get behind him. At the end of the day, even though I didn't feel he was better than those 4 managers in the summer, if he continues to adapt and improve and grow just like players can, then of course he can get better. But if he doesn't and he sticks to what he's doing right now, I do fear that he's not going to last as long as I want him to. I want him to be here for 4, 5, 6 years. Like the solid teams, Arsenal, Manchester City, and obviously Liverpool now, Klopp's going. Their managers have been there 5, 6 years. I want the same thing at Tottenham with Ange, but I do need to see some sort of growth and some sort of tactical improvement, some sort of tactical intelligence. Because I'm not going to lie, Vicky, right now I'm not really seeing it. Every time we play a good team and a top manager, he gets the better of us. So I do need to see change, but I'm not going to be here saying Ange out, this and that. It's crazy to do that. But I would be lying if I said I'm looking at these games and I'm not concerned, because I am. And when 1 or 2 players lose form, you can say, okay, cool, Maddison coming back, maybe he's rushed, this, that. But when 7 or 8 players are losing form at the same time, I'm sorry, the buck lies with the manager.
I think, Pat, that's really, really fair. And I think, look, we're trying to approach this show in the most mature manner, where emotions could certainly take so much of us. And TJ, I don't just say this because you're here. You're always one that I feel is really rational and similar to Jason. And Pat, I mean, you can be very much calm when needed to and look at things rationally. Spurs in the last 4 games, DJ, to bring you in, we had a 4-0 defeat to Newcastle, 3-2 defeat to Arsenal, Chelsea 2-0, of course. Now Liverpool have conceded and obviously lost 4-2. 13 goals conceded, 4 goals scored. Ange during the week said we need a big change and many exits this summer. Now, if you look at Spurs' last 25 Premier League games, which takes out the decent start, of course, the 8 wins and the 2 draws, we've had in those 25 games 10 wins, 4 draws, 11 losses, 1 clean sheet in 25. We're averaging a 1.8 approximately a goal conceded every other game, which means Spurs need to score 2 goals to stand any chance of winning. And, on the back of what he said, of course, during the week, it did feel that really, in my opinion, you're going to find it very hard to now get a consistent level out of the players when you openly admit to a press conference that ultimately there needs to be exits here. So I just wonder, TJ, from what you saw today, and we've been exchanging messages as well, is that what you was roughly expecting, or did the lack of desire, commitment and passion from the players ultimately also tell you there's a real cause for concern here, not just in relation to the effort and application, but maybe the way Spurs are being set up predominantly under the manager?
I mean, just to echo what Pat was saying, I hope this hasn't devastated everybody's long weekend, if it's a long weekend for you guys back home. And also, it's my first time being on the show with Jason, and I'm just finding myself nodding and clapping away as he's making all the points. I think we're cut from the same cloth, my friend. As far as going into any Tottenham game with any level of expectation, I think that ship has sailed. Not that I'm a negative Tottenham fan, but I am a Tottenham fan. And so we're still that club that you just don't know who's going to show up. We've been so appalling over the last run of games, but then, of course, played scintillating football and dismantled a really capable Aston Villa team who are justifiably and fully deservedly going to mark their place in the Champions League this year after an outstanding season under an outstanding manager who, of course, was deemed not good enough by that lot from around the corner. And so was I expecting a result today? I always go in and expecting a result. I'm just that guy. I always think that you never know what happens on the day, and it's 11 men versus 11 men. And Rick, you and I were talking before the game and during the game. And actually, I think, Patty, you were on the pod that we did a couple of episodes ago where we were talking about how Everton, who, no disrespect to Everton, are a far inferior side, far to a man inferior to Liverpool, but just came out and gave them hell from the first whistle to the last. And again, because the Premier League is such a fast-paced league and football is still a contact game with a lot of physicality. So bravery and physicality won't always win the day, but I think will always make you very hard to beat. I remember a wonderful quote from Bobby Robson, rest his soul, when Gary Lineker was talking to Bobby Robson after that, wonderful summer in Italy in 1990, when we just didn't quite have enough. And Lineker said to him, could we have gone all the way, boss? And he said, we were a tough team to beat, Gary. And being a tough team to beat really speaks volumes. Ricky, when you said, we've had 1 clean sheet in 25, I nearly fell off my chair. I mean, that's just outrageous. 1 clean sheet in 25, that would be relegation form. And so to echo the sentiments of the boys, I understand that, frustration, disappointment, anger even, is bubbling over, people feeling, vitriolic response to our club at the moment. I have to say as well, I think that's what spurred Ange to say people need to go this summer. That's a big statement to say publicly, because I think he's also at a tipping point with this club. But again, to echo the sentiments of these learned gentlemen that we have on the panel, I don't think, not only is it not fair, I just don't think it's accurate or even relevant to judge a person who has been at the club for 1 season. He will be, if he doesn't get sacked by the end of this season, he'll be the first manager to start and complete a season since the 2018-2019 season. No club wants that level of instability and that level of knee-jerk reactionary behavior, just like Jason said, just like Patty said. So we have to give him an opportunity. When Pat was talking about the buck stopping somewhere, when the season is complete, that buck firmly stops with Daniel Levy and the board. Talking about what Arteta was managed to achieve. And again, when Pat was talking, Arteta finished 8th and then 8th, and they didn't sack him. 8th and then 8th. Can you imagine if we finished 8th and then 8th? Gone. No matter who. We could have Carlo Ancelotti. Gone. right? And so we have to show a little bit of patience. But if that patience is not rewarded by Levy and the guys who sign the checks, we need enormous investment and have the bravery to cancel contracts just like they did if we are to stand a chance of progressing forward and giving long-suffering Tottenham fans something to cheer about.
Yeah, and do you know what, TJ, you make those points there. And look, it's very, very hard because on a show like this, the difficulty is there'll be some that definitively are in that camp where they've not seen enough from Ange to convince them that it'd be worth giving a huge amount of money to. I think, when I look at the stats around the goals conceded, but again, many will be in that camp where he hasn't got actually his own players yet to bring in order so you can really genuinely judge him. I mean, after this game, Jesse's come out and said, look, obviously a huge disappointing outcome for us, but at least we were more like ourselves today in terms of trying to play our football. Our last 2 away games at Newcastle and Chelsea, apart from the results, which weren't great either, we just didn't try and play our football. I thought in this game, even in the first half, some of our football and our pressing was closer back to where it should be. Now, look, we know that we had a bit of an infight in there coming to the end of half-time, which, again, many will be concerned about why is that happening if the team is so united. I mean, and clearly it's showing you the team isn't so united at the moment, and that's obviously clear to see by the way we're playing. I mean, Jace, do you go along with the fact that what he says there in his press conference, that for him, he could see more about what we were trying to play our football today? Can you agree with what Andrew said there for you?
Vaguely, but there was still a lack of conviction in a lot of it. There was a moment in the first half where we actually had a decent break. I think Sonny got in down on the left. And you thought, go on then, attack him and get a shot in, whiz across, do something, play a cutback. I think Salah was coming in. And he ended up dallying, and then 20 seconds later, Emerson's having to make a block on Salah at the other end. And I'm thinking, we should have had an effort at goal from that. Not necessarily scored a goal, but something should have happened. We should have pinged the ball or something. So there was still a lot. And yet, second half, I thought for the last half hour, Sonny suddenly did start to take people on. And we did look like we'd create chances. But for an hour, we were impotent. So I wouldn't agree with him there. I thought we looked, maybe we got on the ball a little bit more. I think we actually had more possession than Liverpool, but we weren't doing much with it. Never looked like scoring a goal, never looked like having an effort at goal, and constantly looked like every time Liverpool went forward, they'd have a clear-cut chance on it. So I wouldn't say there was much to gain from that 60 minutes. And in fairness, the back end of 30 minutes, well, you're 4-0 down. So the fact you play well at 4-0 down doesn't really matter, does it? You're 4-0 down. It's a bit like last week when we're 3-0 down in 38 minutes. The game's gone. You can't go to Anfield and give them a 4-goal start and expect to pick up a result. So, you come out of it and you think, well, we could have got something there. But let's be honest, when the period of the game mattered, we were 4-0 down and deserved to be 4-0 down.
I mean, when you look at the things he says after the game, he said, look, it's disappointing. As I said, we tried to play our football. It looked like a version of ourselves, which gives me something to work with. I tried to think if it ended 4-0, what that feeling would have been like. And I think the reality is, Jace, on this point, I've asked you about it before. I mean, you tell me you don't pay too much attention to what he does say in both pre and post-match press conferences, right? I mean, do you feel he doesn't use these in order to get a message out to supporters? Do you feel, again, what's your feeling on these? Because we've had a few press conferences where we've had, as you said, one where he said, I can 100% see that we are getting better. And then 48 hours later, we've had the complete opposite where he suggests that we're further away. And like he said from the beginning, we're a long way away from where we need to be.
Generally, I like his press conferences. I like pretty much everything he says. But all I know from experience, Rick, and we've seen it in various, we've seen it in all the Amazon series that have been done on football. What the manager says in a press conference isn't necessarily what he says in the dressing room. And it's more important what he says in the dressing room than what he says in a press conference. So the fact this week he says, well, set pieces aren't this. Don't tell me he walks into the thing and just says, well done, boys. No, I'm not fussed about set. Of course he cares about set pieces. But, sometimes the context gets lost in what he says. And I think that happens with lots of managers anyway, that we've seen managers come out, and I'm not just talking Ange, I'm talking managers in general. They'll deflect an issue, won't they? They'll talk about a referee, or they'll talk about this when they then go in the dressing room and go mad at players. And we've seen that happen before. There's the really famous one of him down the road, Lego Head, in that Nottingham Forest changing room last year, banging on the thing, going, shit, you've done this, you've done that. He came out afterwards of that Forest game and we were a little bit off it today, but fair play. Well, that's not what he was saying in the dressing room, was it? So it shows you what they say in the public isn't what they say in the dressing room, and it's what they say in the dressing room that matters most. So I take a lot of it with a pinch of salt.
I mean, Patty, bringing you in, and you went on to say, look, there were moments where we played some good stuff to get through them, and then we get to the front third and nothing would happen. It's probably a bit of a lack of confidence, but again, that's something the guys have to work through. You have to find a way to overcome that, because ultimately, if you don't put the pressure on the opposition in the front third, and after the work you've done to get up the pitch, they're going to get comfortable with their position. And to be fair, I think he is right on that. I mean, this is the crazy thing. I sit here after games and I agree a lot what he says in the press conferences. I then watch us play and I feel like we, at times, or for most of it, I feel like we're absolutely clueless. I watch us at times, and whether you agree, Pat, I'm looking at players that, for me, don't know their job, don't seem to understand what they need to do. And honestly, when you look at the games like we've had recently, this one in particular, up until an hour, like Jason says, that team is playing, in my opinion, like they're trying to get the manager the sack. That's just my opinion. I might be completely and utterly wrong. But when you see the way Tottenham play without any real conviction, any real commitment, any real dedication, any real desire, application, all the basic things you need to be a Premier League footballer, to me, it also not playing for the manager. Is that fair, Pat?
Yes and no. I don't know. I don't know if I go that far, but at this point in the season, I still think Ange is tinkering. There was a point where we knew our best 11. We knew who was going to start. Everything felt good. And even if we lost the game, you chalked it up, you charged it to the game and you moved again. Right now, none of us could guess our midfield three. Even our front three changes all the time. There's no consistency. There's no familiarity. And it is causing us problems. We didn't look like, I mean, we played without a number 10 or creative player. If you're going to drop Maddison, you have to put at least, you have to put Lo Celso in there. And when Lo Celso came on today, he looked good. I keep saying every time, people keep getting onto Son, and he proved my point exactly as I've been saying. When Richarlison came on, you saw a better Son, because Son is much better down on the left-hand side. When you play Son down the middle, you don't get the best version of Son. So unfortunately, you don't get the best version of Tottenham. Son down the middle is a waste of all of our time. He's not a target man. He's not a number 9. He's someone who's good at running at players. He's good at someone who's linking up with a striker, playing off the striker, and obviously getting the shot off. You saw how much better he was when Richarlison came on. Shout out to Richarlison as well. He looked brilliant when he came on, caused them a lot of problems, making direct runs. He was obviously someone that we could target, get the ball to, and he caused a lot of problems, got a goal and assist. And I know Jason said, Jason's right, because at 4-0, the game's done. But I would rather lose 4-2 than lose 6 or 7-0. Do you know what I mean? So at least we saw some sort of fight. At least we was on the front foot, giving it to them. Almost got caught once or twice, because obviously if you're pushing everyone forward, if they hit you on a transition, there was a couple of times where, they could have scored the 5th goal and it would have been obviously 5-2 game over. It was still game over, but at least pushing at 4-2, you get the next goal and the stadium becomes really nervy and edgy. So at least I saw some sort of fight, but it's always happening when we're 2 or 3 goals down, which is the concern for me. But I did think Ange got it wrong. Starting Emerson Royal at left back today against Mo Salah, that is criminal at Anfield, and he got his ass handed to him. Emerson Royal looked like he'd never played for us before. He looked like he'd never played a Premier League game before. And it's mental as well, because on the social medias, they was like, Emerson Royal's 100th game and this and that. Kiss of death. He was absolute. That's the worst I've seen him. I don't want to see him. And this may sound like, you guys talk about knee-jerk and I'm level-headed. I don't want to see Emerson Royal in a Spurs shirt again, honestly. Like, he's that bad. And Oliver Skip coming in, who hasn't played in like God knows how long, he put him at left back. And look how much more solid we looked. And there was no issues and no problems. It just shows, I don't want to dig out players, but Emerson Royal is just not good enough to play for Tottenham. And he's a liability walking, and he's just not good on the ball. He's not good defensively. He doesn't track his runners. He doesn't do anything that we would like to see a good player do. So get him out of the team. We know he's going to be gone in the summer more than likely. Why is he starting games for us? This is where I do question Ange a bit. It's like, are you throwing him under the bus to prove a point? or are you trying to like? Because if you know what's best for the team, you wouldn't start him in a game away at Anfield. That's crazy. Against a very good team, against a very top manager, top attacking players, it's a recipe for disaster. So I don't know what you're trying to do. But other than that, I think I've answered your question. I'm not sure.
I could see welcome TJ there. I could tell Jace you were trying to come back in there. What was you going to pick up on there, Jace?
I was going to say, look, I've been to Anfield and lost 7-0, so I know what it's like. First time I ever went there, we lost 7-0. That's why I've despised Liverpool ever since.
Right, thank God I wasn't around that time.
More than Chelsea. I despise them more than anyone but Arsenal. So, despise them.
Yeah. Do you know what? I mean, can I just say, Pat, to pick up on a point there, bringing TJ in there. I mean, the concerning thing for me, and this is where, again, I'm very similar to you, Pat. You know, I'm very, I think, calm in terms of my nature. I don't think I am. I mean, Jason might disagree. I don't think I'm too knee-jerk. Yes, I'm emotional and at times hysterical with his football club. But I have said this consistently on this show that I really, really like the way Ange talks. He embodies a lot what I believe is right about the football club in terms of his approach to being the Tottenham manager. But TJ, I'll be honest with you, I'm seeing a number of things that, as I've said, and I'm not going to hide away from these, that are deeply concerning me, take away from the team that he puts out there on a week-to-week basis. But tactically, when we've seen Emerson Royale put in the performance that he did against Chelsea, and today we've seen an element where his left-hand side is getting ripped time and time and time again. And there's a refusal up until after half-time to change it when you can see the problem. And that's what was baffling to me. It's not like Liverpool were going to stop going down the left-hand side. They clearly targeted Emerson as a weakness, and they used it to their advantage. And look, sure, we've got a dog he missed in, and we know we've obviously had issues defensively as per the stats earlier. But with relation to Emerson, and I think Gary Neville said this really, really well, for obviously the goal in which he was obviously partly conceding, and obviously from his perspective, he looks over his shoulder once, and that was it. Just one look where genuinely, although a mitigating circumstance, he's playing on the other side, so it would normally play is going from right to left back. And I get that. You know, you've got to look where someone like Mohamed Salah is behind you. You're talking about a guy that is, I know he's off form, but typical in Tottenham's nature, he's got his form back now. One of the best finishers in the Premier League. And to only have one look over your shoulder and then to not look again, and then within the 2.5 seconds later, it's in the back of the net. How concerning is that for you from a tactical perspective that we didn't do anything like move Dragoshin, obviously, into centre-back, move Mickey van der Ven to left-back? I totally understand that you don't want to lose Mickey's pace in the middle. But I just feel when you know a player like Pat has said there is not up to scratch, is not good enough. I think I think he's a lovely guy, Emerson Royale. I think he's great for the dressing room. But as a footballer, he's not up to the level. And we've bought Dragoshin. We made all that effort to go and get him above Bayern Munich. And he hasn't got a game, TJ. Can you understand that?
No, I can't. I mean, listen, what I can't understand about Emerson Royale would fill a sizable warehouse. I almost think he's an anomaly, not just to Tottenham. I remember talking to a dear friend of mine, another English lad who also lives over here. He is an Arsenal fan, but we can have rational conversations. And I remember talking about Emerson Royale last season, and he just said to me, you know, how did he make it? How did he make it as a professional footballer? And I said, you know, he was at Barcelona.
Yeah.
So I think he's an anomaly. You know, he'd be somebody that you could do a documentary about in years to come and then make a biopic movie about it, about this guy that just kind of keeps skating through. You know, he's not a Premier League footballer. He's not. I think he's an athlete, but he's not a footballer. So, Rick, you know, you listing, oh, well, he wasn't tactically aware that one of the best finishes the Premier League has seen for the last couple of decades is behind. Of course he hasn't. He couldn't play the pass out. Of course he didn't. He couldn't make the tackle. No, of course not. Couldn't make the run. I was cheering when he completed a throw into Basuma over 4 yards. You know, there you go, Emerson. You throw it to someone in a white shirt. Good on you, lad. And I'm sure he is a nice
low,
boy.
TJ, has our standards become when you're sitting there cheering throw-ins to the same
and also, like we say, you know, I'm sure he's great for the dressing room. I'm sure he is great for the dressing room. You know, it'd be great for the dressing room. Nice big bouquet of flowers. When the boys walk in, oh, that's nice, isn't it? You know, probably have about as much of an effect on the team as a nice big bouquet of flowers. Maybe like a cheeky little box of chocolates. You can have one, professional athletes. No more than that. But wouldn't that be nice? Nice little boost for all the chaps. And so players like that do make me question. When Pat was saying, I wonder if Ange is putting him in to make a point to the board. This is what I have. And people want to talk about me and I'm not tactically aware and, you know, I'm not putting out the right team. Look what I've got to choose from. Now, listen, I was not enthused necessarily, but I was pleased that when Oliver Skipp came on at left back, he did a better job than Emerson Royale. But dare I submit to this board and to our learned Tottenham fans out there that I would rather play a packet of Skips at left back than Emerson Royale. I think if you put a multi-bag of Skips just on the edge of the penalty area, Mo Salah might trip over that a couple of times a game. There's that bag of Skips. And so I don't think we can get too excited about Oliver Skipp outperforming Emerson Royale. I also think Oliver Skipp isn't good enough to be at Tottenham. Harking back to Jason's point, I think it's such a lucid, really insightful thing to say is, what do we want? I think that's such a great question to pose, Jason. What do we want? Who do we want to be? Somebody posted it on the comments. Excellent comments again from our listeners and viewers. We are appreciative to have such informed listeners and viewers on this program. And somebody was saying, when we make purchases, we always do this kind of 2-for-1 player. And I thought that's, again, really insightful. Rather than spending 70 million pounds on 2 or 3 players, why don't we make a statement signing and go and spend 70 million pounds and bring in Ivan Toney, or go and bring in, Elise or Eze, or like whoever, go and get Vlahovic, like go and get somebody, go and do what they did. And, does Declan Rice look every cent of that 100 million that they spent on him? Yes, he bloody does.
No one talks about it, do
who
they?
do we want to be? Do we want to be a big club, or do we want to pretend that we could be a big club? I've had enough of that, man. I got so bored finishing in the top 4 year after year after year. We want to be up there and competing. And unless we spend the money and back the manager, we're never going to be that club.
Jace, can I bring you in on Emerson?
I posed the question in the week, TJ. We can sit here and the Levy out people will say we need far better qualities. We've got to go and sign proven players, and I accept. I totally agree with that, and I think Patrick and I had the discussion in the week as well. And so, if I look at an £80 million player, sell me Tottenham Hotspur to him when he will have Manchester City chasing him, and he might have Arsenal chasing him, and he might have PSG chasing him. Why does he choose Tottenham?
Could we have got something like no, absolutely.
Me, even Chelsea, if Chelsea go for Ivan Toney, and Arsenal go for Ivan Toney, and Tottenham go for Ivan Toney, he ain't coming to Tottenham. It's not coming. So you can spend all summer chasing these players, and then you reach the last week, you've got none of them. Meanwhile, the fan base are going mad because we haven't signed someone in June. Well, you're not going to sign those top players in June. So that's my problem. I mean, I look at Polina from Fulham. I think we used the Polina thing. And all of us talk about needing a number 6, Polina from Fulham. If we go to Fulham with 80 million, that alerts all the other clubs, right, 80 million's his price. He doesn't come to Tottenham. He doesn't.
Interesting, yeah.
He'll go somewhere else.
You're probably right. I don't want to believe you, but you're
that's my worry with chasing the £80 million player. That, I mean, I'd love more than Toney. I'd love to go and get Isak. You'd have to go to 80, 90 million for Isak. But Isak's not coming to Tottenham. He'd look at it and think,
from Newcastle, he's not coming to Tottenham, Jace? From Newcastle, he's still not coming to Tottenham?
No, because I think if Isak becomes available from Newcastle, there'll be better clubs than Tottenham making the offer as well as Tottenham.
Right.
If it ends up only Tottenham interested, but if it's Barcelona, Tottenham and Liverpool interested, well, he ain't coming to Tottenham. Right. That's my worry. And the one time we signed a massive player for massive money where we apparently held off the world was Ntongi and Ndombele. That worked out, didn't it? We've made the 65 million statement signing. And he's going to win 2 league titles, incidentally. He'll won the league at Napoli, he'll won the league in Turkey. It's bizarre.
Pat, come in for me there. I can see you're interested in coming on this subject.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I think that mentality's got to change from us as a fan base and also from us as a club. Because if we want to compete, we need to sell. Yes, right now we're not the finished article. We're nowhere near it. But if we want to be a big club, we have to act like a big club. And you put the transition from Man City when they did it, when they first started on their journey, they brought in like Edin Dzeko and a few players that, again, at that time, you're like, why would they go there? But you sell them the dream.
How much did Chelsea pay for Palmer? Do you know, Pat?
40 million, 40 to 45 million.
I mean, would he have come to us?
If he was guaranteed game time and he was sold a plan and a vision, and I don't see why not. I mean, we got Tanguy and Ndombele, like you said, when everyone wanted him. Even Dragusin, there was a lot of big clubs in for him. So Romero, when we bought him, there was big clubs in for him. So
what about Trossard? Because again, like he wanted to come.
Yeah, exactly. Right? He was like we messed about, and that's what I mean. That's what's got to change. The club have got to show some ambition, and they've got to prove that they want the player, and they've got to prove that there's a pathway for that player to come here and win trophies. If they do that, as in that means the manager, stability, the manager will be backed, you will get game time, we will push on and blah, blah, blah. It can happen. Otherwise, players would only go to 2 or 3 clubs in the world if they was only going to do that. So I do believe Tottenham are in a good place. They are a big club on paper. We have been at most points playing in the Champions League or fighting there or thereabouts. We can get back there. But we have to start, think brave, be brave, and obviously push the boat out. If we have that mentality, then we're never going to move forward as a club. So I do hear what you're saying, Jace, but I do disagree because I feel that at some point we've got to be brave in terms of backing a manager, going after the right players. Isaacs, your Ivan Tonys, all these guys, they are achievable if there's a solid plan and the player can see that he's going to come here and be successful.
The problem is, though, Pat, on this point, and we've said this a lot on this show, is that when you see who is actually managing the club from the very, very top, the problem is I've said this now for a number of years, and people don't like my way of delivering it because to them it's not maybe potentially aggressive enough. If I can put it in the most polite way of delivering the message, I could be more aggressive in my potential actions of what we should do, is essentially the board you've got there have shown you that ultimately that's not a winning mentality board. It's a winning mentality board in terms of everything around other things around business in terms of Formula One,
most profitable
boxing,
team in the Premier League,
NFL. I agree with you.
Everything there is an absolute winning mentality monster that they're the best in delivering the product that you need for your specific sport you want. In terms of football, the last 20 years show you that, unfortunately, they are not good in terms of when it comes to, as Jason has mentioned a number of times, backing a manager when they've needed a rebuild. And the ironic thing is that we're here yet again, as TJ so heavily pointed out, that what are we, 5 years since we've actually had a manager in place for more than a season. And you've got to go back 3 or 4 managerial appointments for that in Pochettino, who has coincidentally taken 6 points off Ange Postecoglou this season. That bit's an irrelevance. But at some point, as Jason says, you've got to stick with a manager and back them. The concern I have is whether you can back a manager where, on the face of it, looking at Tottenham at the moment, that there's, at least in my opinion, and I might be wrong here, 7 or 8 players that have started the season that are either out of form or who are not playing to the way they looked happy to play. I'm looking at someone like James Maddison, for example. And look, just a level, James Maddison, in my opinion, has been nowhere near the level that he showed in the opening 10 games. Yes, he's had injuries. Yes, he may still carry an injury. But my worry is that there's certain players that have a sulk when they're not in the first team. And that's not a good thing to have when you're looking to build a team, a squad, a club that wants to go places. And that's my concern. All you need is 4 or 5 of those players in the background to start, as we know, building up antics, start leaking story to newspapers and journalists. Guys, we've seen the movies before, as Jason would so evidently puts it. And that's my concern. Is the club strong enough where they side with a manager and actually give them the rebuild they deserve to have? Or are we going through this exact same cycle again where we sack the manager and we go and get another one and we keep the same board in control? And that ultimately, I think, is where Spurs are at. And, you know, a decision has got to be made. You know, many will look at Ange and feel definitively he's quite stubborn. I think in certain areas, definitively he has been quite stubborn. But I've seen enough, I think, that the man deserves much more than 9 months to at least oversee a bit more of a period at Tottenham where we get a full judgment. That's just my opinion. I just want to say, if I can, just on Emerson Royale, because Ange said after the game on Emerson that we're playing out of position and it's kind of the way our season has gone. When we've had injuries, invariably we've had them in the same part of the pitch. Both our left backs are out and it's kind of forced him out there. It's not great for him. And he's been up against a pretty good player in Mo Salah. Again, that's something we'll have to deal with. Look, what we are going to do, we are going to go for our belated first break of this show. We've got over 4,000 of you that are watching us live. As always, thank you so much for all your incredible support to the show. Jason's not showing it yet, but he's happy. This is Jason's last show of the season. He is going to Thailand soon. I bet he can't wait to go. What a signing off for you, JC.
It's the great thing is I go out there and I see my Thai team win the league. It's just, for the 9th time in 15 years or whatever. So I don't know what it look like, mate. I've got loads of trophies coming.
This is why I say it's unfair to you to be able to have a second side, because we have to suffer this and we have one. So I don't know.
I'm seeing the League Cup semi-final and then I'm seeing them lift the trophy on the last day. I mean, what could be better? What could be better? That or Sheffield's got away. It's just easy.
Let me just say to you, Jace, true fans like myself, TJ and Pat, we only have the one team, all right? We're not glory hunters. We don't need to go and find a second team. I'm joined by actor TJ Ramini and Patrick Tyrant on this last one on Spurs. Look, I think one of the things at the moment that is definitively, I think, frustrating the fan base is that ultimately, as Pat has alluded to on a number of different shows, he said it again on this one, we don't know our first 11. That's definitively for sure. And going into this game again, we saw Spurs make a number of changes. They did opt to stick with Emerson Royale in the left-back position and not bring Radu Dragusin into the team. The midfield that Ange went with this one was Bentancur, Basuma, Sarr. And then we had the forward line of Kulusevski, Son and Johnson. Now, you know what? Such is the nature of Spurs. Liverpool came very close early on. Salah striking the crossbar. Vicario then denying the Egyptian not long after. And then Christian Romero cleared it off the line from Harvey Elliott. And look, we've touched upon the first goal. I'm not going to go into it again, but there was 4 times before that where Salah drifted into an unmarked position, and then finally he did score. Robertson following up, obviously, for Liverpool's second game. And, again, it was a case of who reacted quickest to it. But I do just want to ask a question, just in relation to Vicario, if I can. If I can come round to, I'll go to you, TJ, on Vicario, because I think there's a little bit of school for thought in terms of the opening goal that he maybe went down a bit too easily. He could have maybe stood up and been a bit more frontish for the goal. I'm looking at someone like Vicario, and do you know what I love about him? And similar to a lot of Ange's signings, they've come through adversity. They've come through difficult challenges and periods to be a Premier League player. Don't forget the start he made to his Spurs career. He made some incredible saves. We saw how fearless he was in that Chelsea game, which I know we ultimately went on to lose. But are we just seeing a guy, TJ, that is really, really low on confidence? I thought, to be fair to Jason, he was better today from corners, but there were a couple of times where he looked a bit hesitant. He was jumping around. He was, as Gary Neville said, ants in his pants at times. Is he just simply out of form? Does he just need to have a confidence where he knows the back four in front of him? Because we've all known for most of the season, you could pick Tottenham's back four. We know it'd be Porro. We know it'd be Van der Ven. We know it'd be Romero. We know, of course, we'd have, obviously, in there, if I missed out, Mickey Van der Ven, Vicario, Romero. We'd have Destiny Udogie in there, of course, as well. We've had to shift that slightly. What do you feel for you at the moment on Vicario, TJ? Is it just a confidence thing at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, listen, man. He's a goalkeeper that has kept how many clean sheets. I mean, not his fault, but he's playing like all of our defenders are playing. As soon as they breach that back line, as soon as any team kind of gets in behind, or even puts in a cross or a corner or a set piece or whatever it is, of course he looks wobbly. I mean, the poor guy it's his first season at Tottenham, and he came in and made such a huge impact. He's a big personality. We adore him. We've spoken about him glowingly on so many episodes. The fact that he turns up and watches the young goalkeepers and then gave them, this impromptu speech. His English is wonderful. He's a lovely young man and an extremely capable player. But he's been slapped around so many times. He has no protection. We're back to the number 6 conversation. He doesn't have any kind of protection. Doesn't have like a Douglas Luiz or any of those great players. Onana, like all of these great number 6s, Palhinha, and so of course his confidence has been shaken because he never gets a clean sheet. Never. But then harking back to Jason, to what Jason was saying, and I said this the last time that I was on the show, talking about set pieces and whatever, we've got far bigger problems than that. And I think what Ange is talking about are holistic changes. This club has been struggling and suffering for so many years. And we've come out of I've said this before, we've come out of such a damaging era with the last run of managers. They've really hurt us. They have rocked the very foundations of this club. And so, of course, it's going to be indicative of that level of rot, that there are going to be 7 or 8 players whose form has just dipped. I also think that it's important to say, we talk about even Russ, lovely Russ Williams, lovely chap, sent me a message on Twitter saying, we should talk about the dressing room. And I was talking about with my boys back in North London on the WhatsApp this morning, talking about the dressing room. And the point that I made was, well, that dressing room is going to look very, very different at the start of next season. And they know it. All of those players know it. There's probably 10 of them in there that go, I ain't going to be here in a couple of months. And that really shows as well. So we are at 6s and 7s at the moment. We're all over the place. And so even the first question that you asked me on the show today, Rick, was, what kind of result was I expecting? Brother, who knows? Because we're so inconsistent. There is no cohesion. There's no pattern of play. Another thing that people have been saying is that Ange Ball has been, there's no Ange Ball, or Ange Ball is a myth, or Ange has been found out. He hasn't been found out. Again, to Jason's point, to Pat's point, to your point, Rick, these players aren't playing Ange Ball. So how can we judge the manager? He is saying, I want you to do this. Again, against Chelsea, we saw him on the sideline going, you press, you press, you get over there, but they're not doing it. And he was losing his temper. So if I'm on set and I'm doing a scene and I want to play a comedy when there's a dead body in front of me, and the director goes, what are you doing as a dead body? And I thought, well, I thought I'd try it for laughs. That's not the director's fault. That's my fault. Mm-hmm. So we have to look at these players and going, if the director, or in this case, the manager, is saying, this is what I want you to do, if they're not doing it, we have to assign blame to those people and get rid of them.
TJ, is the dead body an Arsenal supporter?
I tell you what.
Leave him on the head.
If it would have been last week, it would have done us a favour. But listen,
tell Frank later.
Oh dear. Do you know what? The hard thing is, I look at a number of the comments that come into the show live here, and again, I will say there's a lot of mixture of comments. There's some that really feel Ange needs to take a greater responsibility for ultimately some of the results at the moment. A lot of blame is being levelled at the players, and I think the hard thing is, guys, that we've seen this time and time again, and I think the worrying thing as well is that this is now resulting to infighting to some degree, both on and off the pitch. And Pat, we look at towards the end of that half time, Robertson, of course, they put Liverpool 2-0 up. And I think, again, whilst we do say this has been a game at the end of a tough run of fixtures, all you want to see as a fan is the minimum, passion, effort, commitment, desire when you support a team. We then saw Guglielmo Vicario had to drag Christian Romero away from Emerson Royale as the players were exchanging words, to the point where Vicario physically grabbed Romero by the neck and forced him from his teammate. You can either say that's really good to see someone take that level of responsibility, or that should not be happening on a football field. Pat, where are you in relation to what we're seeing at the moment with regards to some of these players?
No, you know what? I liked seeing that, to be fair. I like to see that at least someone cares. And you can bet your bottom dollar, Romero was saying, what the hell was going on? How have you let Salah get past you like 6 times? How have you not got a tackle in? How have you not tracked your runner? Blah, blah, blah. You can imagine them going nuts, because at the end of the day, you all live and die on that battlefield together. And if one player or 2 players lets you down, it's so hard to come back from that. And for all his faults, if Emerson Royale isn't as good as we all believe he should be, at least track your runner, at least know where your player is, at least get a tackle in. And so many times he's losing the ball, or the ball comes to him and he's absolutely killing our attacking passage of play. And it's just, yeah, it's criminal. So I like to see that, to be honest. As long as you're not fighting each other and all of that stuff, it shows that you actually care. It shows that someone has some sort of pride. When we don't see it, we always say, where was the players pulling them up and this and that? So it goes both ways, doesn't it? But I didn't mind that at all. And Romero, to be fair to him, he's someone who always gives 110%. Sometimes he goes over the top, but realistically this season, other than the Chelsea game, he's been brilliant. And it sounds crazy to say that, because we have conceded a lot of goals, but I can't fault Romero's commitment, his desire. It's weird because Gary Neville always praises him, but it's always underhanded. Like, he's like, oh, I like Romero, he's this, he's that. But sometimes I think he's too involved. I'm like, he's doing what he needs to do. Why are you always, every time he gives Romero praise, it's always like a backhanded, underhanded compliment. It's really weird, because for me, Romero is definitely one of the best centre-backs. And Neville even alluded to it. He said the centre-back pairing looks really good and Andrew will stick with that, but there will be changes and everyone can see it. And that's where it's a bit tough. So I saw people in the comments saying, I'm saying back the manager, but I don't like him. I do like Ange. I didn't think, in my opinion, he was good enough to get the job in the summer. I still think there's issues with his tactical flexibility, but I do like him. I've seen good signs, but I've also seen troubling signs. But the thing is, whilst he's here, I can't go crazy and say, get him out, get him out. I mean, TJ said something that I didn't even know, that in terms of the last managers to see out a full season since Pochettino. That's insane. And exactly what I'm saying. We can't keep chopping and changing. At some point, you've got to stick. Every manager has their inefficiencies. Every manager has their problems, and every manager has their strong points. He's definitely got strong points. He's definitely got areas of weakness. But it's the same when Harry Kane first came on the scene, and some fans didn't think he was good enough until he got that deflected goal versus Aston Villa, free kick, and went on. Sonny in his first season, he was absolutely awful. He wanted to go back to Germany, and a lot of fans didn't get behind him. But we stuck with him, and obviously the rest is history. Carl Walker, Danny Rose, Gareth Bale. He was actually, when he was first announced, every time he was on the team sheet, fans booed him because he was considered a hoodoo and a bad jinx and all of that. So at some point, we have to stick with him and see what he does. I believe if he's backed properly, he probably will succeed. But it's whether Daniel Levy will be brave enough to back him. But yeah, I'm not going to be sitting here and saying Ange out. There's problems, of course, but we have to give him the time and the belief. And again, the same thing I said in the summer, once he was appointed, he's here now, I will back him. So I'm not going to change my mind on that. I'm not going to flip-flop, but obviously I have seen some concerns, which is my whole point to begin with. But yeah, he's here now. It's his first season. There's a lot of players here that we all know aren't good enough. There's a lot of players here that we don't believe should be here. So if he finishes 5th, all in all, that's a very good season. I mean, none of us in our wildest dreams expected top 4. We were there for most of the season, so in that point, it's disappointing. But I feel for us to get top 4, it would have to be everything aligns and goes our way. A lot of teams fall off. You know, we get all these decisions in games we didn't get. You know, everything, literally the football gods are smiling down on us. We get the penalties where we should have. You know, deflected balls don't go here, there, and all of that. So I think, you know, 5th is a decent first start for Ange. I don't want to see us fall lower than that. We do have to be very cautious. Newcastle are breathing down our backs and our shoulder and our necks now. And obviously Chelsea are looking quite strong.
Chelsea 6 points off us. I think they've got the same goal differences now.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to be careful of that. But I do believe we'll finish 5th. And all in all, that's not a disaster. But it will come with some disappointment considering where we were for most of the season and how brightly we started it. But football is a 38-game season. It's not 17, it's not 18, it's not 22. After 38 games, even after 34, 35, you are where you deserve to be. And we have to take that into context. So I'm not going to sit here and go crazy. When people say, oh, you didn't want Ange. Yeah, I didn't. But so what? He's here now. Let's get behind him and back him. But that means fans and the manager, and the board and the players as well. And if the players aren't doing it, then they need to go. Like, no matter who it is, Maddison, Son, Romero, I'm not saying they're not, but if they're not pulling their weight, then cool. Then you don't be here, get dropped, and obviously in the summer, go about your business. Because I want to see players that want to be here.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is many are suggesting the fact that, again, they'll give him to the start of early next season and then judge him. And to be fair, I was of that mindset. But if you're thinking about it, you know, if you're actually going to have a proper rebuild, and you're going to bring in 7 or 8 players, then ultimately things aren't going to click straight away next season. That is going to be a period of adaptation again. And ultimately, really, again, are you looking at the fact that you can only really judge him at the end of next season once he has got part of the rebuild is called upon? Then you're into year 2, and then is that a point where you recently judge him? Jace, you're nodding as well there. And it's an amazing stat from Sky that Vinny very kindly passed us here, that after 35 games, trying to put it in perspective, Andrew's got 60 points, Klopp at the time had 58, Arteta had 50. I want to ask you, Jace, you know, you've said yourself that at some point, we've got to be ready and prepared to back a manager. So does that mean on that point that, as I've just said there, if this manager's going to administer 7, 8 players coming in, I can't personally see it, maybe 4 or 5 at best, but ultimately, you can only really judge him when he's actually got those players into the team playing the way he wants to play. So quite honestly, that means can you really judge him at the start of next season? Is it going to be another full season, in your opinion, where you can really judge the tactical quality or deficiencies of this manager? I'm going to mute you there, Jace.
It will be the end of next season before you can do it. And again, next season, even with new players in, there'll be good days, there'll be bad days. That's what happens. There'll be a Tonkin somewhere along the line next season, and it'll come somewhere, I don't know, we'll go to Wolves and lose by 4, and everyone will go ballistic again. But that's part of it. People say he needs to tweak this. Well, if he tweaks things, then you never get him players playing the way that he wants them to play, then you're never going to reach the destination you're trying to get to, are you? Because you're constantly tweaking. I tell you who tweaks, Erik ten Hag. So let's go and get Erik ten Hag, because he tweaks every week. He's a great manager, great tactician. There you go, tweaks every week. But everyone, as soon as he tweaks, everyone says, problem with Man United, you don't know what you're getting from them. So again, it's what do you actually want? It's we know what we want to be winning things, but it's how you get there. And if we don't want a master tactician like Mourinho, and we have a bloke that's got his own plan, or we don't like that, he's tactically not good enough. Well, so we don't want a tactician, and we don't want somebody that's not a tactician. And he's got to play attacking football. But as soon as we get someone playing attacking football, we can see goal. You can't keep conceding goals like this. So we drop back and play a low block. Yeah, but this is boring. It's some stage you've got to accept that it's a long process, and you're going to be some really bad days along the way. Pochettino's first season, I think we got 63 points. We had that little period around January where we put 5 past Chelsea, but we lost at home to West Brom. We lost at home to Stoke. We lost at home to a relegated Villa. We got battered 3-0 at Stoke, I think, when Kirikes got sent off. We got humiliated in Europe, I think, at home. I think we might have ended up with a 1-1 draw from it. But I remember one of the Turkish, might have been Besiktas or something, absolutely ripping us to pieces at White Hart Lane that night. Far better than us. And everyone's got rid of Poch. Then he had a couple of good results, and it's keep him. We knee-jerk to one-off games, and we're desperate for a result today, whereas we need to be thinking, how are we going to be better in 12 months? Rather than knee-jerking, we need a result today. Because actually, we didn't need a result today, because we're going to finish 5th or 6th. It's not like we're in the process of getting relegated. So it's the bigger picture. It's putting yourself in a position to be better next year. And you know what? Part of that is exposing players to see where they're not good enough. But if you don't expose them to see where they're not good enough, you'll never find that out. And then there'll come that crucial stage next season where they're suddenly exposed as not good enough, and you drop points, and they're crucial points. So you can't tweak it too much. It's horrible watching it at the moment. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, I'm loving watching this. It's been a horrible week. Absolutely horrible week. Losing to 3 teams we don't like, losing 4 on the spot. It's no fun, and we're all sitting here shitting ourselves. We've got Burnley, thinking, how can we be shitting ourselves? We've got Burnley. But it's a process you have to go through if you want to become out the other side. It's as simple as that. But we just don't have the stomach to ever go through it. And so we'll always be lurching from side to... We're like an Erik ten Hag, lurch from season to season and actually get nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's hard to agree with a lot of those points. I think, again, just a point towards why I think many fans are maybe frustrated in relation to what they're seeing at the moment is that we went into half-time. We've seen Guglielmo Vicario grab Romero by the throat to not throttle Emerson. But some of us actually wanted to throttle Emerson. With no disrespect to Emerson, I know he's an absolutely lovely chap and a great guy. And we don't mean any physical violence or any harm to you, Emerson. We do love you. But quite the nature of it, maybe we thought he wasn't going to come out for the second half. He did come out for the second half. And again, he lost possession to Elliott, who crossed for the forward to not own the third goal of the game. And, at that point, I think all of us were maybe, although we thought maybe we were going to lose the game, we were in fear of being really, really humiliated. And then we saw Elliott, of course, with a perler outside the box, making it 4-0. That saw Ange then make a treble change. Richie, Maddison and Skip coming on for Kulusevski, Bentancur and Emerson. And Pat, you made the point actually earlier in the show that for you felt it was almost vindictive when Richarlison came on, that ultimately Spurs looked a lot better. Sonny looked a lot better. Both of them scored. And after the game, Ange said on Richarlison's cameo, it's fair to say before he came on, we never looked threatening at all whenever we got into those attacking areas. Him coming on, I thought Sonny improved on the left. Brennan on the right just gives a bit more presence. And Pat, it will point to that point that up until that substitution, God, that front three, Pat, that was really, really difficult, right? To watch, to have to stomach it. And it's not been for the first time, Pat. This has been a recent, definitely in the last couple of weeks.
Like Jason said, I agree with everything he said. It's been horrible watching Spurs over the last couple of games. And I'm almost at that point where I'm like, just end the season. Obviously, we still got something to play for. We want to finish 5th, at least. Outside chance of 4th, that's gone, if I'm being realistic. But you know, the last couple of games I've gone into it for the first time not enjoying it and just wanting it to be over. You kind of already can predict the result. Chelsea away, Liverpool away, 2 games where we absolutely always struggle no matter what form we're in and no matter how good the team is. So with the form that we were in at the moment going there, you never know, you could get a lucky result, but realistically we kind of already knew it was not going to be a result we wanted. And at 4-0 down with like 30 minutes to go, you're just hoping it's not a spanking. It's not a 6-7 or 8-0 or 8-1 or 8-2. So when he did bring that, the thing is for me is, and I understand Maddison being dropped, but I didn't understand not starting Richarlison, in my opinion. Like I said, people keep getting onto Son, and yes, admittedly, he hasn't been as good as he usually is. But for the last 30 minutes, when he had a striker to link up with, when he was on his favoured position, on his favoured foot, you saw him take on his man. He was quite successful with his dribble attempts. He was more dangerous. He obviously scored a goal, and he was active, and he was doing what you expect Son to do. Richarlison was really good, and I know Richarlison's not the best number 9 in the world, let's be honest. We could definitely improve on that, but he definitely allows us to basically look more dangerous, actually have a focal point, someone that we can ping the ball to, not always tick-a-tacker through the middle, going down the wings, whipping in across, and it's not working. He just go direct, get the defenders thinking about him, and then even if the ball doesn't stick, you have people running off him, and that can cause problems. And then Maddison, again, obviously he's a very technically gifted player. We just looked more in control when he was on the pitch, and he tried to make things happen. And when Lo Celso came on as well, had a bit more control, because we're a team that's going to have a lot of the ball, but I need to see more technicians. And I'm not sure how Ange's going to tweak things, because obviously you can only have 11 on the pitch at the same time. But at the moment, we're just losing control, and there's no real quality where it needs to be. I saw comments when the lineup was announced saying that with no number 10, we're essentially going back to Conte ball, and obviously Jose ball. It's a tough one. I know at the moment, you know, it is literally, this is trial and error season for me. Now that we know we're essentially out of Europe, I do want to see Ange, like you said, stick to his philosophies. And I do agree with Jason on that point as well, because Erik ten Hag changes all the time and no one knows what he's doing. They don't know if they're coming or going. So I do agree. All the top managers do stick to their principles, but they do tweak things a bit more than I'm seeing Ange do. Today he did show something, because obviously 4-0 down and he made the changes and they did have a positive impact on the game. I know the game's dead already, but still it's better than, like I said, being spanked 6 or 7. So we saw some encouragement at the dying embers of the game. But the problem for me is that we're always going 3-4, 2-0 down in these games.
Games are gone, aren't they? That's the
yeah,
games
exactly.
Games are gone.
We're conceding a lot of goals. And I looked at I thought, let me just do a quick stat check against the other teams there, or thereabouts. And we scored 69 goals and conceded 58. Chelsea have scored 70 goals and conceded 59. So all of a sudden, Chelsea have just literally turned on they flipped it on, and they're looking essentially as good as us right now, which is crazy considering where they were in the injuries. Newcastle have scored 78, so that's 8 more. Sorry, that's 9 more than us, and they've conceded 56, so 2 less. Villa scored 73 and conceded 53, so that's quite impressive considering. And they lost today. And Man United scored 52, conceded 51. So to be fair, we're there or thereabouts with the teams around us, but I'm a bit disappointed because I genuinely thought it was the top 3 and then us and Villa fighting for 4th. But now you can see it's essentially a top 3, Villa, and then it's Tottenham, Newcastle, and Chelsea, which is a bit mental. So we've definitely dropped a level. Yep. It's not massive causes for concern, but obviously it's disappointing considering where we were to begin with.
Can I be honest with you, bringing TJ in here? Look, people aren't going to think I'm crazy saying this, and they might be well within their rights think I'm crazy. Villa in the Premier League have not been, in my opinion, any better than we have been. I think you look at their results, Villa, in terms of what they've done. They've had a couple of decent wins away at Arsenal, of course. I think they beat, I believe, obviously Arsenal at home as well. But honestly, they've not been anywhere better than us. Look at the amount of goals. I think they've conceded 14 goals from set pieces. And a lot of people obviously rant and rave about Ange's set pieces record, and I have done in previous shows. But can I be honest with you? You might, boys, think I'm crazy. I know, Jason, you will think I'm crazy. If someone offered me right now a top 4 place, I wouldn't want it. I really wouldn't want it. People might think I'm crazy saying that. And I want to bring TJ into this point because I look at Tottenham and what I think we need next season. People are going to go absolutely mental by this. Look, Everyone knows I'm a cup man. I love my cups. That's all I care about is the cups. Jason's sick of hearing it for the last 7 years, but that's why he's rubbing his head. But honestly, do you know what? I think Tottenham, in my opinion, have got a genuine better chance next season of using it as a building season in terms of a development season. There's my cup, as Jason was up in the background there for the viewers and the listeners watching this. That honestly, I'm telling you right now, I think the best thing for Tottenham will be being in the Europa League next season. The level of teams I think will suit Spurs a lot better. I think playing those kind of teams will, I think, give Spurs a decent chance to not only blood in some new players, some young players as well, but also allow that growth that the manager is talking about. And that's whatever they do at the end of the season, whether it's this man or somebody else. But I can tell you right now that, in my opinion, I don't want Spurs anywhere near the Champions League from what I'm seeing this season. Honestly, when you look at the level of not all of those teams, but some of those teams, I'm telling you, Spurs should not be anywhere near it. And again, people might think I'm absolutely crazy for saying that. And you're more than you're right to think it's crazy. It's the genuine elite competition. I know it's where Jason wants to end up playing. I know it's where a lot of people love seeing Spurs on away days. But honestly, I want to go into every competition feeling we've got a genuine chance to compete. I look at Tottenham as a club right now. I look at our squad right now. And even with 4 or 5 new players coming in, I don't think we'll be at the level. So I'll go to you, TJ, first, and I'll go to Jason afterwards. In your opinion, TJ, do you agree with me that at the moment that where Spurs are right now, I don't think Champions League football would suit us. And I don't think Aston Villa, if I'm being honest with you, have been much more better than us, but they've got it on the basis that they've been a little bit better, not tremendously better than Spurs. As we've seen, we beat them 4-0 away from home. We're unlucky to lose the home game. Tell me I'm talking crackers. Tell me I'm talking crackers here, TJ, bringing crackers into conversation.
I mean, listen, the way that we're playing at the moment, we couldn't get out of League One. So, it's
There's some bloody good teams in League One.
I mean, listen, first of all, just to talk about Villa, because you were talking about Villa, are they a better outfit than us? I mean, they're a certainly more cohesive team than us, and they're much further into their rebuild, and again,
fair point.
Keep banging on about this, but it's really important because, Rick, even before we came on the show and then right at the top of the show, you talked about this great division amongst Tottenham supporters right now. That, there are a vast swathe of people who are saying Ange is out of his depth. Just because you can beat Kilmarnock 2-1 on a weekend doesn't mean that you can come and beat Arsenal, on a weekend. He should go. And then, of course, I would like to think as well, it's more than half are saying it's his first season, relax. I'm very much in the latter camp, and I think all of us on this panel are. And so Villa are a really good example of what it shows to back a manager who has a very clear vision, very clear system. He's proven himself in Europe. He's proven himself in the Premier League, and he has, a squad that's not as on paper as talented as ours, performing consistently really, really well with a couple of key elements. And one key element, just to hark back to what Pat was talking about with Richarlison, is that Ollie Watkins has been, an inspirational player for Villa this season, and Douglas Luiz. So one at the front, one at the back, and they have this really wonderful shape and structure. I have to say as well, I'm a huge Leon Bailey fan, always have been. I love really fast wingers. And then I looked at Brian Hill when he came on the other day. God knows I've never been a fan of his other than that fabulous Barnet, looking like George Harrison circa 1974. But, how are you not fast? Like, if you're so weak, how are you not fast? How are you not technical? Like, how are you not good at anything? And so would I like to be in the Champions League next season? Yes, I would. Even if we got beaten, because, again, like all of us on this panel, brother Pat, when you were saying I want the season to be over, mate, I'm desperate for the season to be over. Desperate for the season to be over, because I'm looking forward to what our team is going to look like next season. Not even so much the football that we're going to be playing, but who's going to be playing it, because I cannot wait. Rick, you were saying maybe we'll bring 4 players in. If we brought in 4 players but lost 10, I would be delighted. It's outgoing players that I'm more interested in than incoming players. And so if we did get Champions League, which we won't, would that help us to attract a few better players coming to the club? If we finish up in the Europa, which I think we will, let's go and have a run. There's no drop down from the Champions League. So yeah, we've got a chance to win it. But I'm always going to want us to finish as high as we possibly can. We won't finish in the Champions League this season, so it's not really, too relevant. But I just want to see us bringing in a better quality of player and playing better football. Because I think to Jason's point, he made it ages ago, if Richarlison's first touch, and I'm not saying it's not because he's not good enough, he's rusty, he hasn't played enough. If he had a run of games, I think he would have scored 3 or 4 goals today. He was in behind, and what he was doing is timing his runs perfectly. Every single one, he was onside, right? The ones he scored and the ones he missed, he was onside for all of them. And so with a little bit of match fitness, maybe he could be the kind of striker that could get you 10, maybe 12 goals a season, but he's not our starting number 9.
That's fair. I mean, on Richarlison, Anne just said, look, he offered an explanation as to why he was absent from the starting 11. And he apparently said, look, he was never going to start 2 games in quick succession. And obviously for him, given that he's only recently returned from injury, that is the reason why he hasn't played twice in a matter of a couple of days. I think what's quite interesting as well is that when you look at the comments after the game, Anne just said that he feels in relation to the substitutions and timing of them that we always tend to finish strong, and I think the subs benefit from the hard work of the other guys. I thought Richie was really good with his presence, and that the other guys coming on, I thought they added something for us. I just, if I can, want to close this section of the show a little bit just in relation to Heung-min Son, because many feel we don't have that discussion enough in regards to his form. Now, look, he scored today after a lengthy VR check. It means his record versus the Big Six is 25 goals and 8 assists. Jason, do you feel for you? And look, you're a big Sonny fan, right? And you feel the presence and what he brings to the team. Look, I don't need to tell people that, everyone knows that you have got a close affiliation to obviously Thai and in regards to how big he's in Asia in general. Can you understand the notion that with Sonny, any criticism for the way he's playing at the moment, is that fair in your opinion?
I think there's a certain amount of criticism is fair, but like Patrick says, he's not a number 9. He's not a number 9. And he's being played as a number 9. And I get that people, there's questions about, should we sell him? I'll just ask you this. When we got a penalty last week, who did you want to take it?
Sonny.
If we get that game to 4-3 today, if we get it to 4-3, and we've got a player going through in the 90th minute, who do you want it to go to?
Sonny.
Who's the most likely one at Tottenham at the moment? Not doing it at the moment regularly, but if I said to you we've scored a goal today where a bloke's dropped his shoulder and pinged it in the top corner from 25 yards, who do you expect me to say who scored it?
Sonny.
There you go. There's your answer. So, he's not firing on all cylinders, but he's our best forward player. So why do people want to sell him? He may not be the level he was, but he's still our best attacking player. He's still our top scorer, and he's still the person that when we get a big chance against a big team, you want it to fall to. So that's your answer for me.
And Ricky, he's still one of the best players in the league. I know, like Jason said, he's not been on it, or our eyes will tell us that he's not been his scintillating best, but that's hard when you're played out of position. But this guy still got 17 goals and 9 assists.
Also, when your team is playing so badly.
I know, yeah.
9 times out of, you said this before, Pat. 9 times out of 10, when Sonny's receiving the ball at the moment, he's standing still, double marked.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want him to do? He's not Harry Potter. He's not going to pull out a wand and say something in Latin and they all disappear.
Yeah, there's no runners off him. He's
the fulcrum, the central point of a front three that's misfiring entirely in front of a midfield that's completely disjointed and all out of ideas. There's no creativity. Whenever Liverpool receive the ball, whenever Arsenal receive the ball wide, they're moving forward. Whenever he receives the ball, whether he's out wide or whether he's in the middle, he's standing still and double marked.
Yeah.
I think as well with Sonny, we can attract developing players like Brennan Johnson and players like that. And I like Johnson. Long term, I like Johnson. But who will we go and get that is better than Son?
They won't. We know they won't.
Will we go and get a player 28, 29 that is at the very top of his game and has the reputation that Son does? Or will we have to go and get another developing player? like Newcastle with Gordon and Harvey Barnes, like us with Brennan Johnson, like, you know, that type.
Chase, the last genuine top-class striker Spurs signed, and you don't need me to tell you this, we did the show.
Jurgen
Klinsmann.
Jurgen Klinsmann.
30 years ago now. Their
We
record,
got
their history shows you Spurs won't.
Got Gareth Bale, but he was a developing player. We got Modric, but he was a developing player.
Yep. Van der Vaart, you could argue, I think maybe along with Alderweireld, in my opinion, are the two players you'd say that were in their so-called prime. But again, Alderweireld really only had the first season under Saints when we got him. I mean, Van der Vaart was one you could say was, in my opinion, the only player in the last 20 years that, to some degree, had some kind of experience background behind him. Well, you knew with Van der Vaart that you were getting someone that knew really what it was like to score on a big occasion, that handled big atmospheres, and would ultimately, I think many felt, would take the Premier League, and he did. Look, I want to close on this final question to you all. It's one that has been divisive at the moment, of course, throughout this fan base, and it's whether Ange Postecoglou will get that time to get the rebuild, or whether Daniel Levy, being Daniel Levy as chairman, will cut that cord accordingly sooner rather than later and veer off to yet another different managerial venture. We'll start, if we can, with TJ. TJ, what's your feeling like? And knowing this board like we all do over the last 20 years plus, what do you think they're going to do, TJ?
I don't think they'll fire. I mean, listen, he'll make it to the end of the season. And again, like I said earlier, he'll be the first Tottenham manager to do so since the 18-19 season. So that in itself, I don't know if it's an accomplishment, but I think for us, it's something to feel positive about. If he's backed in the summer, they'll need to give him next season to prove, well, we bought you some of the shiny toys that you want. Let's see how you lay them out, and let's see how they perform. With regards left backs and right backs, the fact that he has them playing in the midfield, it's really important, again, that our recruiters understand what it is that Ange is looking for. I mean, Trent Alexander-Arnold is a wonderful example of the kind of player that we would be looking for. Again, like there's players at Brighton that do that really well. There's so many players at Brighton that they just keep bringing on. That young lad played today. My brother was there actually watching the Brighton game. The young lad who played on the left, I can't remember his name. He scored the goal. No, he didn't score the goal. He set up the ball for the penalty, which led to the goal. You know, we need to go and find players like that can go and play in those positions. So with regards Levy and the board, please give him a chance, man. Give him a chance. Get rid of some players, cancel some contracts if you need to. Beyonce will come next season. Taylor Swift will come next season. WWE will come next season. F1's coming next season. Daniel, you'll make your money. I promise you, brother, you'll make your money. And we know that that's what you love. Beyond oxygen, you love money. And so it's coming. So please give Ange a little bit to spend on the football team, because really that should be the first priority.
TJ, I have to say, mate, thank you as always for keeping it balanced, for keeping us calm.
Thank you for having me as ever, Rick. And listen, I felt terrible after the game today, but as always, after being on the show, especially with these great guys, Jason, my first time with you, brother, a real pleasure. Pat, man, you know, we've done the show a bunch of times now together, brother. So good, mate. So knowledgeable, so well balanced. And again, I want to thank our viewers and listeners. I know it's tough. And also, I know it's important as well that you like and write nice comments and everything on YouTube or on Twitter or whatever. Just support the show, please. Support Ricky, because we're all very grateful to you, Rick, and to the show in general. Thank you very much.
Bless you. Thank you so much. Look, what I will say on that point is I have to apologise even further. Whilst Jason's getting away with it, CJ, and heading off to Thailand, you're back with us next week for is it next week or we got Burnley? Listen, I feel bad. You're with us twice before the end of the season for Man City and Burnley.
Thankfully,
yeah.
I hope we're going to finish the game with a little bit of a positive bump, because we have got a couple of pub teams coming up. You know, so hopefully there's going to be famous last words. They're going to be all over social media. TJ said it was a pub team. Got walloped 3-0 by Burnley.
No, honestly, I mean the worst thing I think for many will be is that Burnley game they've got something to play for. And, you know, look at the way we're playing at the moment. That's a big concern. Pat, look, you've been one for me that's never, ever hidden their views here on Last Word on Spurs. That's what I love about you. Look, we had the pleasure of having you now for a year and a half or so, and you've always told it as it is. You don't shirk. You don't, in my opinion, you don't twerk for opinions. You don't, in my opinion, also change your mind or flip-flop from week to week. You've been fairly, I would say, consistent from the very, very start. That, look, Ange wasn't your choice, but he came in. You've backed him. You've also pointed out where he's had his failings this season. What do you think they're going to do, Pat? We're coming towards the end of the season. Results aren't improving, and many players aren't playing for him at the moment. Do you feel in your heart of hearts, Pat, they will give him the time to get it right, or Daniel Levy do what Daniel normally does and not stick to scripts?
I think Daniel Levy has to back him now. He has to. I don't think he's got anywhere else to turn. It was quite toxic before Ange came in. If you remember in the summer when we were like joking and laughing, will it be another, 300-day managerial search, everyone rejecting us like they did before we got in Nuno, and we couldn't afford that again. And as well ran as Tottenham are as an entity, the footballing standpoint has been a bit of a calamity show and a clown show over the last couple of years. And Daniel Levy, I mean, there was so many chants of Levy out in the stadium. It was getting quite toxic, home and away. You could hear it on the TV screens. So this season, the fans have cooled down because they can see what's going on. Admittedly, over the last month or so, it hasn't been great. But I think most Spurs fans will understand that this is, like Jason and TJ and like myself have said, this is the rebuild. This is the painful part. It's not all doom and gloom. We're not 15th. We're not 17th. We're not 18th or 11th. We are 5th. Like, if we put into perspective, in the football pyramid of 90 teams in the EFL, we are 5th. So as bad as it feels right now, there's a lot of teams that would love to be in our position. Like, trust me on that. But of course, we know where we could be. In my opinion, Tottenham are a sleeping giant. We've got all the tools and facilities to really crack on and give the good guys a real run at it. But we just, we're like sleepwalking through it. So I feel Daniel Levy has to back him. I think Ange is a good manager. On the face of it, yes, he wasn't my first choice. I've seen stuff that I really like about him. But just like other managers, I've seen stuff that I don't like. If he tweaks that, get some of his players in, we can give him a fair assessment. I'd be crazy to say Ange out and don't back him, because then who do we go and get? We can't keep starting this cycle. It has to, at some point, we have to stick with it. And we have to really go at it. And then if we fail, we fail. But at least we failed. We know we tried. Right now, Tottenham haven't really been trying. We bought in, like Band-Aid. Like, we had a massive cut and we're just papering over it with a Band-Aid. The Contes, the Joses, and, interim managers, your Nunos. I think Ange is the right guy in theory, but he has to obviously change. The board has to change. And if we can align and move forward together, then it can be successful. So, yeah, he has to be backed. He has to be listened to fully. Like, whoever he doesn't want here, get him gone. There may be a tough call or two. I don't know. But I think really and truly, the nucleus and the spine is there. I feel we need a number 6. We need a real good striker. And probably we need another good winger. It feels like sometimes we're playing players on the wing that don't really feel like they're wingers. And then, we go again. Obviously, it's tough. After 4 defeats, I can't sugarcoat things. It has been tough. Some of the teams we're losing to, I don't feel we should lose to. But then also at the end of the day, if you don't turn up on the day, you can lose to anybody. But yeah, I feel hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel now. We're almost at the end of the season. Hopefully we finish 5th and we don't tail away any more than what we've done. And then again, we go again in the summer. But I need to see conviction from the board in the summer. I need to see us go after decent targets. Some of the players I've seen us linked to, I'm questioning. I need to see real quality. But yeah, without going on too much, Ricky, yes, he has to be backed. Yes, I want to see him backed. Yes, I want to see Ange here next year. I want to see Ange here for a couple of years, Like, we've cut our cloth now. He's in. Give him the tools and let's see what happens.
You know what? It's funny, Pat, you say that. And again, I'll be honest with you guys. I've had a bit of a mind shift. I mean, the reality is I think about it now. And look, guys, I'm honest about it, right? I've said it to you, Jace, off air as well, that I've seen things that are deeply concerning me under Ange to some degree with relation to some of the tactics. But overall, can I stomach going through yet another transition where, can I be honest with you, if he left tomorrow, I generally couldn't tell you who I'd want. I generally wouldn't know where to turn to next. And whilst definitely I've expressed my concerns to you, Jace, in messages, I've been, I think, fairly consistent that I do like the guy. Like, I do like the way he talks. I like the way he acts. I like everything about him. I can get away from the fact that he doesn't look at the camera when, he talks. I can get away from that. I think to some, that's been made a bigger issue than what it is. But the key thing for me, I think, as Pat says there, I would just like to see at times just a little bit of adaptation when needs to be. I'm not asking to go away with his principles. I'm not asking to change his philosophy. I think, in my opinion, the best managers do have an element where they can slightly be flexible and bendable, as cracks would say. That's all I'm asking for. I don't want to go against his values. I don't want him to go against his traditions. I don't want him to go against what makes him the manager that's got him to Tottenham Hotspur. because what he has done is he's built his career over changing people's opinions. I want him to make me believe, and again, in my opinion, I don't want him out yet, but I want him to convince me that he's still got the fight and hunger and determination to make it right. So a closing question to you, Jace. You've seen it all under this ball for the last 20 years. What would you like to happen, and what do you think will happen, Jace?
Well, I'd like to see. I'd like to see him in charge next season. Because, as I say, I haven't got the stomach to keep ripping it up after 1 year. My fear is, I think he will go into next season. I do fear that he won't get past Christmas. That's my honesty. I'd let him have the whole of next season unless we was in relegation zone or something daft like that. But I fear that he won't get past. I fear he might not get past October, let alone Christmas. But I do think he'll still be there on day one of next season. We know we have to improve.
Is that with a rebuild still? Is that with the churning over of 6-7 players coming in, those going out, that you still believe, in your opinion, you think the board would still not give him the time? You think if things aren't improving by October, they would get rid of him, yeah?
Yeah, I do, because I think the board wants top four, and as soon as top four looks like it's not coming, they'll go into their normal thing. They're desperate for top four football or for Champions League football. I think fifth was okay this season when they thought that fifth would get them Champions League football, but it's not going to, is it? So I think that's how they'll always evaluate it. When they can't get Champions League football, they'll go into their panic syndrome again. But I'd like him to get to a chance to play the football that he wants to, and then we'll judge him on it. But I fear, like I say, long term, whether I like him or not, whoever likes him, I fear he'll struggle to get past. You can't constantly lose games by fours, that's for sure, because the alarm bells ring, and players will lose confidence and they will lose belief in a manager if you constantly lose four. So I can see it from both points of view, for sure.
Well, look, guys, I can't thank you enough. Jace, honestly, mate, I wish you a lovely breakaway. I think, look, you've deserved the sabbatical for the 7 years that you've done on here, and we're letting you up a bit earlier than what we usually do. So not often, Jace, your season finishes in May, although many won't like me to remind them, but you did quit under Mourinho, and you didn't come back.
We're around soon, mate. I'll be able to watch test matches and things like that, and I'll be saying to you, Rick, hurry up, the cricket's on. Hurry up.
I never, mate, would ever be able to do it without you in long term. You're a legend. Listen, I've got to say a massive thank you, TJ, mate. I only apologise in advance. You've got more to come. We've got more to come, mate. We look forward to seeing you more. Sorry.
We will grin and bear it together, my friend.
Absolutely.
A pleasure being on as ever, Rick. Thank you so
Bless
much.
You, mate.
And thank you, boys. Thank you in the panel. Everybody, again, watching and listening. Thank you for your comments. We'll do our best for you next time. Lots of love.
Bless you. We love it always. Go on, Jason.
Can we just say, Rick, can we have one more painful show this season? Please, Tom, don't let us down. We need a really, really painful show next Tuesday where we've been battered by 5 or 6 and Haaland has run riot.
I would play Emerson Royale in goal.
Absolutely. I sincerely hope Emerson Royal has not played his last game for Tottenham. I really hope he hasn't.
Listen, on that game, we could concede 20 set pieces. I don't care. Chuck the ball in the net.
I want Emerson Royal. I want Højbjerg. I want Ndombele recalled from loan. I want Danny Rose back left back.
Ryan Hill up top.
I want Gazaniga back in goal. Please, Tottenham, please make sure that we do not win that game or get a point. Battered, please.
Oh my God, that's going to be interesting post-match show having TJ on there. One of the most positive fans to reflect on the fact we might want Tottenham to. Well, I think many do want Tottenham to lose it. Pat, mate, you'll be joining us for more. Unfortunately, sorry, bud. Thank you as always. Oh, yeah. Pat, what a journey! Nice. What a journey!
What a journey! And you know what? When Jason was saying that at first, I was like, no, I didn't realize, and I cottoned on to what
I didn't know where he was. I didn't know where he was going at that point until he said City.
So apologies, Jace. I'm on the same boat as you. But it's a weird one because if we would have won today and Villa losing, I would have been like, we might have to beat City, you know. But now I don't care whatsoever. Yeah. So it's done now. So yeah, you know, Villa, cheeky. I think they need about 5 or 6 for the goal difference. So a cheeky 7-2, a cheeky 8-1, something like that. At least you score 1 or 2, and then we move. But no, all jokes aside, it's been a brilliant show yet again. Like I said to everyone, I think we need to keep the faith. We need to keep perspective. Angie's here. I want to see him be successful. Most managers' first years are kind of shaky like this, to be fair. We need to change our mindset and also not go into panic stations every time we go for a rocky patch. Otherwise, this cycle will never break. And it's like a never-ending curse. And, you know, we need to, at some point, get behind the manager. And hopefully, like Jason's saying, he's here past Christmas and he's here next year and all of that stuff. Ange does need to tactically evolve and develop. But he's an intelligent guy. He's got where he's got. And at some point, he would have had to change and develop as well. So I'm hoping he can do that at Spurs. And yeah, shout out to every Spurs fan. Shout out to every other fan watching. I know some of you do infiltrate and watch us. So shout out to you as well. My Chatty Patty pods are on YouTube, so check me out as well, Patrick Tyrant there. And yeah, just enjoy the time off, man. And I think, when's our next game? Next Saturday? Burnley at home, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I hope to see as many of you down the stadium as possible. Yeah. So that's
got a week to get over it. We've got a week. There's been 6,000 of you plus that have watched this show live. Again, we can't thank enough for all of our support. We're gonna let you go and enjoy the rest of what is left of Spurs not ruining it for another week. I want to say a massive thank you as always. TJ, lovely, my man. I can't thank you enough. I've already thanked TJ about 15 times. I can keep thanking the man. I love him. Pat, thank you so much. Jason, you're off the hook. You're out of here. You're a last word on Spurs member. Get yourself out of here. From TJ, from Pat, from Jason, from myself, we've been the last one on Spurs. If you can't laugh, you cry. As always, keep the faith.